Just give me a second while rather than just, I have to do it on my iPad first, then I'll find a better way to do this later. Never mind. Yeah, because it's locked in my iPad. So, okay, so going back to your question, Fa, you're saying, say that one more time. So you're saying driver equals new Chrome driver here in the parent class, right? And you're saying why would someone want to reinstantiate it here?
Yeah, because you said something about like you wrote it in the hooks class, but like you could have wrote it in the login test or whatever.
Right.
But why would anyone do that if they can just write it in the hooks class and not have to like go through that?
No, they could, right? They could definitely do that. But that's like asking the question. I get exactly what you're saying, right? But with that question, why would anyone do that? It's like saying, why do we have to put private or protected for everything? Can they, technically, you could live without these protected variables, right? I mean, these protected modifiers. Technically, I don't even need to put protected here and I could still access it through here, right? But why do I do it in the first place? To add that layer of protection regardless, right? Because once your code base once it gets so big, it's hard to appreciate, and a lot of people don't like Java at first because it throws these modifiers in your face. It has you follow all these rules. But once your code base becomes really big and you have all these extensions, all these different branches, you're not really sure where it is you instantiated a Chrome driver. Like, I'm sure you guys at this point hit null pointer exceptions before. That becomes really common when you're in the workplace and you're not sure where to locate it, right? So that's more of like a general reason, and that's what you should go with, because at a point, what I'm saying is, yeah, TestNG, and it really depends on the developer, right? How they want you to ultimately use it. Like TestNG, they could have done the same thing that Cucumber developers did, right? They could have said, I want to use the dependency and injection format the same way Cucumber did, right? But they chose not to, and the reasons are beyond the scope of this course, right? But the point is, that's how they decided to do it, right? And as you develop, your coding skills, your architectural skills, you'll understand why. But at this point, it's just that's just how they chose to go with it, right? Why would someone put reinstantiated Chrome driver? You never know, because it could be a simple mistake, or it could just be something new they were trying without trying to muddy it up themselves, and they wind up doing something they regret, right? And they can't find where the bug is. So does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yes, I get it. It's hard to appreciate at first, right? But what I'm trying to tell you, right? If I put a driver equals new Chrome driver right here, right under this new login driver, or let's say
Yeah,
right above it, right? Do you think the compiler is going to tell me anything?
no.
Right, yeah, right. Like I put it there, and I might kind of haphazardly have done it. Could be a simple mistake, or I'm just not understanding something, so I decided to do it anyway, because for whatever, in this instance of this thing of whatever I'm trying to code, it works fine, right? But thing, I'm not sure if it's bad practice yet, so I'm just gonna do it anyway. But further down the line, that's when it screws you over, right? And that's what all these exceptions, these these stoppages are for. That's why, for instance, if I wanted to do the same thing over here, let's say it was standard that it's bad practice to reinstantiate the Chrome driver in subclasses, right? I can't do it here, period, right? I could put a this dot driver equals new Chrome driver, but that would reinstantiate it here, and the compiler would even just tell you this is the one you instantiated, right? Because this is the only local one around, right? And you wouldn't screw up the rest of the classes that way. You would just your error would reside here, right? That's kind of the reasoning behind why they did it here. So off that, let's move on to this whole Cucumber element of it, right? So clearly, where here driver is accessible over here, because I made it private, this WebDriver and this parent class is private. I'm sorry, this parent class has a private WebDriver. Right off the bat, even if I try to do a new Chrome driver command here, just the compiler wouldn't allow it. It would give you a red underline, and you won't even be able to execute the code, right? So what it's saying is the idea behind, all right, but you know, take into account this. This is private, but the methods are public. Why do you think that is?
Mm, Wait, say it again.
So why is it that the driver is private, but the methods are public, or they could have been protected?
You want to be on. You want like whatever loading landing step definition, the hooks class to be able to interact with the driver without actually like
Right. Keep going.
manipulating the driver.
Right. No, that's a very good answer, right? Because that driver, if this had direct control over whatever, you know, this could become, they could assign it to anything. They like you guys saw, you know, like you guys remember how in the beginning I said this whole WebDriver portion is just is called an interface, right? But they're really Safari drivers, Internet Explorer drivers, Chrome drivers, Firefox drivers, all types of drivers, right? And in here, we're working with the Chrome driver. But in here, what's really stopping someone from saying driver equals new Internet Explorer driver, right? They could have done that here and it just wouldn't work because, first of all, we haven't even began to set up our environment for Internet Explorer driver. Regardless, because there's no protection in place, they could have gone ahead and did that. And because all driver classes, you know, they share the same methods. Like if you guys use the Internet Explorer driver, it would have the exact same methods. It would have send keys, it would have click, all that stuff, right? And you would be able to use it scot-free. It's not until the point of execution that's when, you know, the bugs start. Not even start. It'll just, frankly, you know, it'll in runtime, it'll give you that error, but you have no other way to know that, you know, you messed up because the compiler wouldn't recognize it. It's just saying, all right, he's following the rules, he protected it. That means this should implement it, right? But how do you get that control back and make sure the user doesn't do that? Well, in this case, you privatize it so anytime anything he extends from. So think of me as the lead developer, right? I create this because I know the people under me, they might screw up, right? So ultimately, I don't want them to have so much control over this driver, but they can to even, you know, to get something done. They could use my methods because what's in my methods? My methods tell me exactly the driver I want. There's no way they could get inside this without actually modifying the class, right? And that, you know, we'd be able to easily track what they did, right? Because Git would tell you right where they changed the line. But once that will be an easy bug to even find. Like you can see where they modified it. But if they did something like something that's hard to catch, where the compiler doesn't even catch it, that's a much more difficult bug to find, right? Because all the logic is technically right, but it's still causing a bug, so you're not really sure how to trace it. And that's just kind of the basic overview of like why Cucumber went the way they did, right? So going back into the architecture, what they did is you keep your variables private, right? And the only way to change it is through the public methods, right? Because these have access to them, right? So how it happens is not only do they extend it, but they also accept the parent class into the constructor. That's a must because otherwise they wouldn't have access to that driver period, right? Because yeah, you could get, you know, you have the bare, you know, the base utils class, but ultimately you got to do the set driver step, right? To even create the Chrome driver in the first place. And then you create a driver variable so you could interact with it. And then you say this.driver referring to here equals, you know, base utils.get driver. But the major thing is, because, you know, remember, we didn't just have this feature off the bat. We downloaded. I gave you guys a dependency to download. This wouldn't have otherwise worked. But there's a lot of background code going on here, right? So you got the get driver, but notice that in landing step definitions, as long as it's happened once with the hooks class, I don't have to do that thing. Let me zoom in a bit. Right? What I'm talking about is here. Here I do the b.set driver, right, to create a new Chrome driver. And here I did I created the driver and I put it over here, and now it's usable. I could do the driver.get and driver.quit, and these are now usable, where before I wouldn't have been able to extend from it. But the main thing is now, since it's happened once, I don't have to do it for any of the other landing step or anything. I could create a login step definitions file, I don't know, like a payment step definitions file. And because it happened in the hooks class, and the hooks class specifically because of the before and after annotations, you don't have to mess around with this again, because now all the classes, all the step definition classes have access to this driver, right? Because basically now it's locked in, right? The driver is locked in, and you don't have to do this whole set driver step again, right? Because now all the step definition files, they just have to lock it in themselves, right? And they could go on with however they did it. Does that kind of make a little more sense?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah. It's fine if it doesn't now. This is more something. Yeah, go.
Try catch the thing, right? We didn't put that in yet.
No, not yet.
The after method.
Wait, what? Say that again.
The try catch to close out the Chrome page in like 2.5 seconds or whatever.
Oh, you mean the thread.sleep method?
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't put that yet, but you could do it. This is a very
So where would we'll put that in the hooks?
well, what do you want to do exactly? Do you want to finish a test case and then we'll just wait for a second before you close it?
Yeah.
So where would you
Right now, it doesn't close the. Oh wait, I probably didn't run it with the after method, but yeah, we want to wait a couple seconds and then close it.
Right. So what do you think the best way to do it here is? Let's say you have a bunch of step definition classes, you got a bunch of step definitions, but every time after you're done doing the, your test case, you still want to wait a bit before you close it. What do you think the best way to do that here? And anyone could answer.
Well, you want to put it in the after method, right?
Right.
But
Yeah. That's it.
But now, do we put it in the hooks or do we put it in base utils?
So the main function of base utils is such that this driver is there, so it could be shared. That's really the only purpose of it. There's no reason to populate it any further unless you have a good reason for it. Like if you had a more private variables here that you want all the classes to share, you could do that because of the dependency injection, the whole component of it, right? But you wouldn't put it there. You wouldn't put the thread.sleep here because any class can do thread.sleep, right? They're not sharing any variables to do that. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, so thread.sleep
Okay,
is
so
just,
what about,
yeah.
we have our string in our hooks class, private protected string URL, the URL string.
Right.
Put that in base utils instead, since
No, I'm good. I'm really glad you're asking that question, but think about that for a second. So, okay, you guys heard what Berm said?
Like, why do you need it in the hooks class when you can have it in the base utils class?
Does anyone want to think about that and answer that? That's a good question. So Berm is saying, from yesterday's example in the hooks class,
Pull up the code.
say again?
You might want to pull up the code.
Yeah. I'm just going to explain it here because it's easier to see it from the tree. So I'll explain it and I'll show you exactly what he's referring to. So, obviously you need the URL, right, to even, go into the page in the first place, go into saucedemo.com. And Berm is asking, why are we putting that in hooks and not base utils? I'll go into the code for a second, but what do you guys think? So, okay, let me go right to the code then, and let me see. Because I deleted a bunch of stuff. I don't know if it's there. Yeah, I deleted it because I wanted to start over today. The only thing I have is test runner. Unless you want to share your screen, Berm. I don't have it in mind.
Sure, but I don't know you'll be able to see it. It's like ultra wide.
Okay, that's fine.
Just eclipse. You see it?
Yeah. All right, let's see. Yeah.
So this right here, we have a protected string. Why can't we put that in the base utils right here?
Yeah.
And that way, when we when we call upon it, we should still be able to use it, shouldn't we? Like right here where we get driver.get URL
Right.
for calling for URL, but it's not here. It's instead here.
Right.
Base util. Should we still be able to use it?
Right. No, that's a really good question. I'm gonna answer it in a bit, but let me see if you guys can get it first. Why?
Well, try it.
Say again. Yeah.
I'm
Try
gonna
copy
try
and
it.
pasting there. It'll work just the same. But there's a specific reason why we. Yeah. You see, it works just the same. It'll function just the same. But why is it that I prefer to just have it in thing hooks?
Is it because it's only needed
Yep.
here?
Yep.
You're
That's the
never
reason.
gonna need it again.
Yeah, right. Like it's just to rehash the idea of that base util is the only major use of it, right? Is just to be able to share that driver with the subclasses, right? Technically, in base utils, that line 11, off that same idea, you don't need it there either. And to kind of rehash that point further, the only thing is that private WebDriver is the important part, right? And the only way to share it between all the subclasses is because of base utils, right? So even for line 11, you could put that in the before method, to really kind of drill that. Because systems that get property or set property, there's no reason why it can't. There's no reason why there's nothing to share there, right?
Gotcha.
Yeah. So so you could do it. You could leave it on base utils, but it's good to really ask why you do things, right? And if there's not a reason, just you should follow best practices because it'll make your code clear. If you just got to get used to that flow of it, just having a reason for why you put things they do, even though it'll work here, right? Regardless of how you put it. But fine, does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yeah.
a little bit. Yeah.
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 Sure.
Yep. Okay. I think all right, I'll take the screen now. Okay. I mean, that kind of covers what we went over. Now, I think like for best, like to really have it like, secure in your head, we should do it from the beginning, like step by step. So I suggest you guys just pull up that image, have it to your side and just help me along here, right? Because I deleted everything. But as a hint, I put page objects and step definitions to help you out. And once you get this, if you could do it yourself, which I don't want to talk too much today, I'd rather you guys fill it out, and then we could slowly do it. I prefer, I know Berm, you have it on your machine, but I prefer, you minimize it for now. Minimize everything you have, and for best, like to the best of your ability, try to fill it in to how you think it should. So the only step I really care about right now is I land on login page. So anyone, feel free to start how we should begin. And if you don't have to know all the steps right away, if you want me to just start filling in so the picture becomes more clear, feel free to let me know. Just tell me exactly what to type.
First you make a package for step definitions.
Yep,
You have that
got
already.
that. Yep.
Okay.
Gotta make a base utils page.
Okay.
I mean,
Where do you want me to put that?
would it be in the runner class?
All right, well, let's try it. Why not? Yeah. I mean,
Yep.
doesn't hurt.
Package.
Yeah, and it never hurts.
Base utils.
Okay.
Wait, no, hooks. Hooks would be in the page objects.
Okay. Now, I'm not
Okay,
gonna
but
correct
why
you.
is that?
I'm not going to correct you. Just we'll see how it comes together, and then later we'll shuffle it around if we need to. So, whatever you remember, just spit it out, and we'll do it one by one.
I mean, it's right from the back. You do hooks, extends, base utils,
Okay.
then import base utils.
Okay.
Well, hooks has the before and after, so you can start with like at before, at after.
Right.
So, at before public void.
Make sure work base utils first? Since it's...
Up to you. Like what I'm saying is like ultimately it should make sense at the end. But if you feel like you have to just type stuff in so the picture becomes clear, that's fine.
That's how I do it. I just work backwards, kind of.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it because it'll make sense at the end. But if you need stuff to jog your memory, just type in whatever you remember at first. Just as long as berm, you gotta minimize, right?
Yeah. No,
Yeah. Okay. All right.
But I have that chart you made.
Yeah, just the chart. Fine, you could do the same. Like thing. Yeah.
I have that.
Yeah, just have the chart open and just help me type. That's the only thing.
I think it's Public Void's setup. What's
Yeah,
what you
sure.
called it? But doesn't matter what you call it.
No. I could call it like set up with a big U. Configure anything I want, and I'll import that.
And I would make it after class. Call it up or tear down.
Okay.
I'll probably go back to base utils now.
Okay.
Start working up that. You would do the WebDriver. Private WebDriver. Private WebDriver. Wait, private. But you make it protect. No. You keep it private.
Why?
Because you're going to you're gonna have the base utils as the argument.
Right. Yep. Because
The-
you extended from it, right? But because it's let's even do it right here. So let's see what happens if we try to act. Let me to make it easier for you guys. So this is base utils, what we got so far, and this is hooks, right? And remember, hooks extended from base utils. So if this were protected or even public, right? I would be able to do something with it, right? Driver dot whatever, send keys. Find element, all that stuff, right? And obviously public is pretty much full-blown access. So once you privatize it, I could dive at a dot, it doesn't even recognize it, right? Okay, keep going.
Why does the driver have an underline?
Oh, don't worry about that. That just means hasn't been used yet. The value of the field is not used. So once you actually instantiate it, then it'll remove. Those are like the question marks Fa pointed out last time. It's not a big deal. The only big deals are the red stuff.
Oh, you would make so based on this diagram you would make a set driver and a get driver.
Okay.
Methods. The public void set driver. And public void get driver.
Public void get driver?
No. Public web driver.
Why?
Okay, so now, that's because it's returning something, so you don't, you erase the void, right?
Okay, yeah, we would do that.
Then you do. Well, set driver, you would put the. Okay, well, this driver, this dot driver is the home driver. So let me understand why you do that. Is it because you're saying that this driver that you have, private web driver, you want it to be the same as the web driver you have in the hooks class?
So specifically, it's good you understand why, right? You should ask that question, right? Because if it's private, if I set this variable to this, right? If I instantiated it here, the question was, yeah, I extended it, but remember from before, I can't do it. Like if I could dot, it doesn't reference it, right? So what's the point of setting this driver up, right? And the hooks, I still need to run the appropriate functions here to even get the web page up. But if I put driver dot, nothing is happening, right? But like yeah, you instantiated it for now because like we mentioned before while we were going over the diagram. That's just how dependency injection works. It's just a small tweak of what we're used to, where regularly when we use testng, if we extend from it, as long as we protected it, you would be able to do that driver equals new Chrome driver here. But that's not the case here because this is just how it works. It wants to protect that variable, so all the subclasses cannot change it, right? But keep going. That kind of makes sense? Yeah, for now you did put the Chrome driver here, right? Yep.
So you would call the driver, you would in the hooks class again, like web driver, or before the not in before the before method.
Right here.
Yeah, right. Driver, import it. So you would call that set driver method is made in the base util. So public. No, wait. So you do base utils dot set driver.
Base utils dot set driver. So first of all, let's fill this out because this is bothering me right here. So how do I get this red out of there?
You gotta put a return driver.
Yeah, so let's just fix that. Okay, so we're actually done with this, right? So you'll be confident we're done with this. So in the hooks, now we have to start actually being able to use the driver. So how do we start doing that?
You have to call it, right? You have to.
Right, but this is not. We have no access to this. This locked it up in here, but we don't have access to it. How do we begin to get that access?
You do base utils dot. You should have access to it.
So this doesn't do anything because this is just referring to the actual class, right?
You have to put it in the brackets, the parentheses.
Where?
Base. In public void setup.
Okay, say that one more time. Public void setup. What do you have to do in it?
In parentheses, you have to put base utils.
Like this?
Or is that in the login tab? Oh wait, no, that's not. That's in the other one. Test run.
Anyone else want to pitch in? Ishfa?
You do that before under web driver. Web driver.
Web driver. Like this, you're saying?
No.
Take your time. Just look at the diagram a bit.
Do you need to make a constructor?
Yep. That was the one thing missing. That's the one thing separating this from all the testng, ideas. So go ahead. Constructor, what do I do for
hooks constructor, right? Constructor. Okay, gotcha. So yeah, do public hooks. Parentheses, you put base utils.
Yep.
Then you can call upon it, right? You should be able to do set base utils dot set driver.
Yep. So you set it, right? So it's set, and it's there. But is this referencing it to it just yet? The one inside the hooks class?
No. Okay, so I wanted to reference it. So this dot driver.
So I heard two people talk. What was that?
A get driver.
Yeah. Tell me the full line.
Oh, base utils dot get driver, or driver equals base utils dot get driver. This dot driver equals base utils dot get driver.
Right. There's some background noise coming from your end, I think.
My air conditioning.
Oh.
Talking or something.
Yeah, it sounds like talking. Well, no, and
my professor's video in the background because she checks if I'm watching it.
No, I got you.
I'm not actually.
No, that's fine. That's fine. You just keep it on mute. So this is the whole idea behind what actually separates it from these other libraries you've been using, right? To actually have access to a base utils class, to have access to its methods, right? You put it in the constructor, right? That's the one main thing separating, because once you have base utils, you could set the driver, and that's from then on that's shared between all the classes. So after you're referencing it, every change you make here, that if you make a log and step definitions class, you don't have to do that set driver thing again. It'll just always be available, right? And then obviously you put the get driver. All right, let's wrap it up now. We're getting pretty close. What I put in setup and tear down. I think you're talking on mute, if anyone's talking.
For setup, you use the driver to open the application.
How do I do that?
You do this. I forgot exactly the line, but it's like the system dot get property.
Yeah, like the actual line to actually pull up the URL is driver.get, right? So obviously we'll put the URL, and we decided earlier that the URL can go to here because it doesn't need to be shared, right? Why?
What does it need to be shared?
So earlier Bermal asked, why is it that we put the URL here, right, in the hooks class, and why not over here, base utils?
Well, what did it have in base util?
Say again?
I get and then URL, right?
Yeah. But Ish, did you get why I put it here and not base utils? Because technically,
it's not like a base utility to know the URL. The URL can change, right?
No, in automation, you're usually working on one URL per thing, per repo, right? But why is it that I put the driver here, not the URL? I could have extended from, I could have made it, I could have made that one public. Well, I could have done that private, like string URL, right? And I would just, the only thing different is I would just, have it like a get URL method, and I would put it that way, right? But why is it that I didn't do this? That's what I'm asking. Over here, and why did I put that over here? Fa, you want to answer? So what I'm asking is just like how I put the private driver here. I could have put the private, URL here, right? I could have, but I didn't. Why?
We said it was because
yeah, I mean, the reason. I'm curious if
You're gonna put the URL there because you're gonna put it in the step definition.
So, hang on. So obviously, I'm gonna have more step definitions, right? All I got is right. Well, we put hooks here, which that doesn't really belong in page objects. But I don't want to correct you guys just yet. I would have done it later. But hooks belongs here actually. among the step definitions. Let me update it, right? So that might have confused you, but hooks is, because of that before and after idea, technically there's no actual hook definition, but I think it'll illustrate it better, right? So if I make a landing step definitions class here, right? And obviously for this too, just like the hooks class, because remember this is the class that starts having the given when then annotations, right? So obviously I'll extend the base utils from it.
Okay, so what's your question again?
Yeah, I got you. Hang on. Base. So my question was, why is it that I'm choosing to put the URL here, the actual URL in the hooks class instead of base utils? Like, so technically, let's say I didn't have it here, right? Technically, I could have, let's do it the same way we did driver. I could have done this. Could have done that. I could just, put in the URL here. And I could have done this, public string get URL. I could have done return URL, and I would have been fine, because I could have just done, like, at that point, I could have done this. And among, how I set the driver and then I got the driver and I put it in there, I could have done this too. So this.url equals base utils.get URL. I could have done that. So why is it that I didn't want to do it this way? I could have, and technically everything would have still been fine, but why did I choose to do that only with the driver, not URL?
So, I don't know the reason why, but maybe it's easier to change the URL or something. I don't know.
No, that's fine. Okay. So you see how how landing step definitions is extending from base utils as well, right? Basically, the idea is any type of step definition file I make ultimately will extend from base utils. Why? Like, why does every hooks or every step definition file need to extend from base utils?
They need the driver and stuff.
Right. Stay there. So you're getting that part. So at the very least, the idea that every class that extends from every step definition class ultimately needs to extend from base utils. Why? Because we need that driver. It's private, but that's fit. That as one of the specifications are that it has to extend from it. So you got that part, right? What I'm asking now is, why is it that just with the driver and not the URL as well?
Because the URL is like kind of always changing or something.
No. Look at it closely. What's the only method I need to use? Well, what's the only time? Take yourself through a regular script. When's the only time you need the URL? So you got all your methods. You got a driver.find element. Say that one more time.
Only for login, because that's where you start.
Not login, but you're getting there. Remember, I'm not talking about the username. That I'll need. Say that again. Wait. Say that again. I don't know. You guys are repeating a lot. Everybody go on mute. Everyone go on mute and let Fa talk.
Because of the before method in hooks class?
You're getting there.
It would be at the beginning of every step definition, no?
Yeah, exactly, right? Not only that, the only time I need the URL is in this method, right? When am I going to need the URL in landing step definitions, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, or login step definitions, or product, purchase step definitions. The only thing class that needs it is hooks, because it's it's getting that URL, right? So there's no need to put it in base URL. You could have, but is landing step definitions going to use that URL?
Wait, ask that again.
So you were getting to the answer, right? The hooks extends from base utils. The only time for a script where the URL is needed is in that very first step where you're going into that web page. And also the only other method you're really only using once is the teardown method, the quit method, right? If hooks takes care of that with this before and after annotation class, every type of given when do I need that URL in any other class? They're focused on given when then, right?
Yeah.
So the basic idea is, why is it that if that's the case, if base utils should only contain the shared variables, where does URL come in? It's not shared, right? URL is not shared. It's only hooks needs it. That's why it has it here. But there's no reason to put it in base utils because landing step is not going to use that URL, right? It only cares. The hooks takes care of that URL part to log in the page, right? Or not log in to pull the page up. This only cares about what? Find element, send keys, right? So yeah, it's a small detail, but it's just good to know why you're doing the things you do and not just trying to memorize it, right?
Yeah.
But does it make sense now, Lil?
Yeah, I think I did enough.
Yeah. All right. So let's fix that.
But let's say
yeah.
Why even have a base utils and a hooks? Why not just keep it all in one?
Okay, what do you mean by all in one?
That's a cucumber requirement, right?
Not exactly. I want to kind of get to what Fa. So you're saying what is?
You just put everything you have in hooks into base.
So before and after in there as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, what Berm said. That's just how it's architected. That's what the architecture. It's just how it wants it done, right? From strict, it's just being strict that way. Like, just to pull up that image again, it has to be that the superclass, the very, very superclass, has to contain the shared, elements of it. And everything that isn't shared, if you put on the before, annotation steps here, that completely defies, what it expects, right? Before it's pulled up to this, but before this method is not shared between all the classes. Landing step definitions is not going to need this or this, right? That's not its concern. So it's equal parts separation of concerns and equal parts, just abiding by this whole structure. Does that make sense?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So we're almost done with the hooks. But one other thing you can just this whole privatization aspect of it, you should you should adhere to it, right? So this would also be private, right? Like, you just get used to making what's necessary to be private, just privatize it. Because now that you're working with this whole dependency injection of it, you don't need to worry too much about what has access to what, right? That's all been taken care of in the background. All right, so let's move on to landing step definitions. So let's say the only step I'm concerned about is just landing on the page.
You call the WebDriver again first.
Okay, how do I do that?
Private WebDriver driver, same as in hooks.
Right.
You as hooks class, you have that WebDriver right now doesn't contain anything, so you need to you make structure first.
Okay. Like this?
Define that WebDriver, right? So same thing as you did in hooks class. Wait, let's see here on your chart. You put this dot driver. But why do you not have to, like in hooks class where you have base utils dot set driver?
Right.
Why don't you have to do that in the landing steps definition?
Right. So we briefly mentioned it. Remember, like even though Even though it looks
You're
like this,
extending.
right?
Gotcha.
No, not even because of the extension, really, that component of it. Because even then, you'd be right. And that hooks extends from base utils, but how we're regularly used to extending, hooks is unaware of what landing step definitions is doing, and vice versa, right? So that's a very legit concern in that how did it remember that hooks did the set driver portion of it,
Yeah.
right? Well, the main idea behind it is because of this before and after annotation, everything that encompasses this, the class that encompasses this, that's what's going to happen in the constructor. Does that make sense? So this, because the before annotation is inside hooks, right? This precedes everything else, right? And because this class precedes everything else, because of this before annotation, the constructor, because of the whole dependency injection element of it, its lines are executed first. Does that make sense?
Okay, so by the time you're in landing step definition, you're executing that. It's the driver is already set.
Right, because of this whole before annotation, right? Because it's contained in hooks, right? So it's saying, all right, not only do you get the URL, right? But obviously, to even get the URL first, to even have this work, the hooks has to be executed through the constructor, right? So it does all of that first, primarily because it was the class that contained before. That makes sense?
Yeah. No, I get that. Okay. All right. So then you don't need that base utils on set driver. So you just do this driver. Oh, that was right. This driver equals base utils dot get driver.
Where are you getting base utils?
It says it on your little chart thing.
Right, but remember, this is no different from hooks, right? Yeah, it is true that I set the driver, but what do I still need from that base utils class?
Oh, you gotta call upon that class.
How do I do it?
I don't know what the word is, but you put it in the parentheses.
Right, parameter.
Class.
You gotta accept it as a parameter. That's just how it is. So you get the driver, right? Okay.
That's it. Right?
Yeah,
Then
that's
you
it.
just
So-
do that. The givens.
Yeah, let's fill that out too. So let's say I land on login page, right? We'll complete it. Let me import that. And now before I do this, I do want to start implementing page objects now, right? Because I don't want to have to go through the step definitions here, right? So let's say, let me just copy paste a few page objects over from another project. So I'll take login page and base page. I'll put it here. Okay, so just to reiterate, login page should have everything: input username, password, click button. Base page is just an abstract class. So now that I have that, and just to give you a quick overview one more time of login page, all I want to do is, let's just say, I just want to input a username, right? In this given function. So how would I do that?
Can you make a new object? So this is how I did it in the homework, and it didn't work for me.
Okay.
But the way I did it was, wait, did you already bring in the login page?
Yeah.
You did, right?
I brought it in. Let me put it on the side for you.
So I just made a new object, login page equals
that,
new
right?
or login page equals new login page. And this is how I did it. You import it, right? Or
Yeah,
or you
everything's
let it
imported.
import.
Yep, and as we
Wait,
know,
you're-
this is the most updated WebDriver. But yeah, go ahead, sorry.
So okay, I did that. Then I did login page dot. You're doing land on login page.
Yeah, I mean, just leave it as that. Or, you know what, okay, let's make it more accurate. Let's say I input username in login page, right? Because this has an input username.
Input. Like, login page dot input.
Username, right? We'll just say whatever, a username. Like that?
So when I did that and I ran it, it wouldn't. It didn't put in the username. So
Okay.
then I went back, erased that, and then I did it the other way, like driver.find element. You know, the whole long
Right.
version of it.
Right, I got you. Okay, so let me see our feature file. Let me pull that up. That's getting a little confusing. Let me X something out. Put the feature file here, and let me make sure that's the same one, and I'll delete it. Delete all these other ones we had right here. So let's just say this scenario outline is inputting a username in login page, right? And obviously the given will just be, you'd never do it like this because this is not a proper given statement, but whatever, it'll still work. So let's say given I input username in login page, right? And let's let it run. We don't need any examples because we're just literally posting the username string in there. All right. So let me. Yep.
Your given needs to match the at given in landing step, right?
Yeah.
That's how it works now. Okay.
Yeah, basically. But I didn't go over like regex too often. Like it's not too important just yet. I'll give you like guys like a regex cheat sheet. But basically anything I put in here, if I use regex, I can start making mistakes, small mistakes here and there. Like if I accidentally did this, because human error. Like I could have done like I could have wrote like login page, right? And obviously as the product owner, human error, I'm gonna mistype things. That's just how it is, right? But I don't want my whole execution to stop because of it, right? To fix that, you use regex a bit, but I'll go over that later. I'll put it in a cheat sheet most likely to teach you how to use it. But for now, let's just make it exactly how it is. But you get a lot of leeway when you use a little more advanced parameters. But for now, let's just say I input username in login page, right? And now we could let it run. Let me make sure the run configuration is right. Like cucumber. All right. Oh, it didn't run. All right. Let me see what's going on. No features found at source test resources feature. Let me see. This happens sometimes. Feature not found.
You didn't put anything in examples. I mean, I don't know if that's the error.
No, that's not it. It's just can't find the feature file. It's because I shuffle around this code base so much. Let me see. This won't happen to you guys because luckily you only have one. But you see how like an answer key just in case. That's probably doing it. But let me see if I can do that. All right, let me just delete these and redo it. see if it shows up in the terminal. Let me try to create a new one. I don't know if this is a bug. Let me actually even just try to exit out Eclipse and redo it, because this happens randomly, but you guys saw the paths looked fine. So let me just try to exit out of Eclipse really quickly. I'll try one more time. If it doesn't work, then we'll just move on. Let me see if this works. What I got right here is the answer key. Because it's basically the same thing. But for some mysterious reason, the other one's not working. But I'll try this.
Adla.
All right, we'll just use this. I land on login page. All right, so I just had to type username landing page step definition just to separate it from another step definitions file. So going back, Berm, you said this was not working for you when you tried to instantiate a whole login page.
Yeah, but I didn't really try it much. I just, I didn't really try to figure out what was wrong. I just tried it the other way and it worked, so I just went that way.
What was the other way?
I did driver.findElement, and put, send keys.
Oh, so you did this. So instead of trying to instantiate the classes, you did this, referencing this one right here, right? Driver.findElement.
Yeah, and then and then I just send keys and put in the username.
Right.
In the username section.
Right. Oh, I got you. So you referred directly to the driver. It could be something wrong with your page objects class, but if you have driver access here, that means if you have your page objects correctly instantiated and everything's inside of it is good, it should have worked. You don't have a wiki, right?
Yeah, right. What you don't even need that thread, right? You just need like the first two lines, 20 and 21. It should work.
20 and 20. Yeah. I don't need this at all. This is just to pause it for a second while I see it haven't been inputted.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll try again that way. See if it works.
Yeah. But this was just a quick review of it. So let me just go over the homework. Before I do that, did this make a little more sense to you guys now? Like all the subtle differences from TestNG and Cucumber?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
It makes sense to me now, but to do it from scratch might be a little hard.
Right. Exactly.
But I guess that's practice.
Yeah, that's how you have to do it. So I'm gonna do this. The only way to get good at this, or to have it in memory so you could recall it during an interview, is for the most part in this lecture, Berm did a good job in that, you were actively, shouting it out. But again, you need to do it a third time, but this time by yourself. So you develop that inner voice. So I'm gonna push thing. The only thing I'm gonna push this time is this, where this don't even worry about. This is like the configuration boilerplate code. We'll mess around with this at another time. But all I'm gonna do is push this into a runner page package, and then you guys kind of could take care of the rest. But obviously, it won't be as simple this time. There won't be just the login scenario to handle. Now I'm gonna want something a little more specific. And before I mention that, all I want right now, and I'll add it for more further down the week, and I'll push the thing. I'll push the template that I want you to clone from to begin this. But for now, this is all I want for homework. So let's say this scenario is not called something really specific, like landing on login page, right? I want it like before, how I was talking about yesterday, where let's say I test landing on all pages, right? Because as we saw in saucedemo.com, there's all types of pages. There's a product page, there's a cart page, there's a checkout page, all that, right? So the major pages that I want are here. I'll lay it down in Teams that your test script should cover. So I'll put it right here for now, and I'll formalize it much better, but just so for memory, just do login page, checkout page, what else was there, product page, and confirmation page, right? And it's not gonna be so involved. It's not as involved as you think. So the basic idea behind it is Give me a second. So one thing I told you guys before is what I want to be able to do is, you remember from yesterday, if I just put quotes around here, like I could put landing page, right? And just I want to be able to, for whatever you end up being able to code, right? So in here I said I wanted the landing page, checkout page, product. So think of me as the product owner, right? And I want your script to be so good that after I put in my example usernames here, so far I got standard user and secret sauce, but obviously I want them all. I want whatever the other ones were. Just fill it down the list. I want the script so comprehensive that I get to iterate all. Well, let me even just put it down here so it makes more sense. So because I'm forgetting what the other ones. So locked out user. Locked out user, secret sauce. I think the other one's problem user, secret sauce. I think the last one was performance glitch user and secret sauce. The idea is, so I got 4 sets of test data, like we're already familiar with, but how many test cases in total would that be?
What was the question?
So obviously I want 4 sets of test data, right? But I want to be able to verify that with your script, me as a product owner, I want each of the test data to be able to land on the login page, the checkout page, the product page, and the confirmation page, right? So how many test cases is that?
16.
Yeah, right? How'd you do that?
There's gonna be 4 for each.
Right.
Each
right.
one.
Yep.
So 4 for login.
Right.
For checkout page.
Exactly. Right. So basically.
Question. For the examples, can you put in XPaths as the example?
What do you mean? Like, what do you mean?
Like, I guess we don't have to, since we already have the page objects created already.
Right. I don't know what you mean by XPath. So you're talking about this feature file for XPath?
Yes. So if you say, I click on, the cart, and then in the example you put the XPath to the cart, and then now you only need one line of code, and the reference is the XPath from the examples. Yeah, I might be thinking about it wrong.
Yeah, because feature files have nothing to do with XPaths. Like, you shouldn't even have anything to do with it, right? Because you got to think of me or whoever's going to use this as a product owner, right? No technical expertise at all. Like, nothing related to XPaths. I just want natural language, right? So basically, I want to do something like this, right? For each scenario. So let's say, test landing page here. Here I would want to test product page. And here, you get the deal. Test, checkout, test checkout page. Let me fix that. Something like that, right? And each of these are going to iterate over it. There's a way to condense this down so you cover it all with, like 3 lines instead of, all of these, or 1 line instead of all these, but we'll put it this way for now, just for, brevity or clarity. So this is exactly what I want. So before, I showed you guys a specific way to pull in a string in that. So I have the I land on, right? And that's expected. That's the piece that's expected. So you have a given I land on, right? Given I land on. So that's expected. But I only want you to modify this method right here. So it should be able to, and we went over very briefly yesterday, and there was a way to do it where, right? This takes a string, and now because I have the string regex, this indicator of regex, I could take it in as a parameter, right? So in this case, it was page. So basically, this string is gonna be anything this is. So like I land on every time it's run, right? So it's gonna be run all these times. It's gonna take whatever the product owner decided to put here. So in this case, she put I land on landing page, right? So this is gonna, if you take this as a string, even if right now, let's say you just wanted to quickly test it, for that first given, well, what do you think this is gonna return? Forget this. For that first scenario, what do you think it's gonna return?
Landing page.
Right. So each given is just going to print out literally a landing page, product page, checkout page, that for each iteration, right? But obviously, that's not the challenge here. The challenge is based on based on what the product owner puts in. This one function should take care of landing on each of these pages, right? Does that make sense? The requirement?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is the only thing you have to change. And I don't want you to use drivers directly. I want you to invoke your actual page objects. So it should ultimately end up looking very clean. What I mean by that is I don't want all these driver dot find elements here. I want you guys to actually involve your page objects. So that's the only requirement. And the only other requirement obviously is just to do this from the ground up again, just to really drill it into your heads. I'm gonna push the template again. I think it's already there, but I'm going to push it one more time just in case. I'll have you guys clone from it, and then you guys can start right away. And this will be the only requirement. So is that clear for everyone?
Is that what regex is?
Say again?
Is that what regex is?
Yeah. We didn't go over it too much, but this basically regex just means that you have a lot more say into what kind of strings you could recognize. Like for instance, this doesn't cover it just yet, but if I, for instance, did this. Right now, this alone can't handle it just yet. But for instance, let's say you wanted like a landing page. If someone were to put landing page without the space, you don't want to fail them, right? You want to make it so even if they have a few spaces, the regex could overall recognize what they were going for. That's what it's for. But this is not even regex. This is very basic stuff. But I'll give you guys a cheat sheet to understand it a bit more later.
Okay, and now what is the throws exception? What does that do?
Oh, so that happened because right here, because of the sleep, right? So anytime you invoke thread.sleep, you get an underline, right? Why? Because if you hover over it, it throws an exception. Like a lot of times, I mean, the reason behind it, this method, why it throws an exception, is during that sleep, that waiting period, it can be interrupted, right? So while it halts the entire program from doing anything afterwards, you never know. Like some other piece of your code could interrupt it, right? So it needs to be handled, right? Because otherwise it's not gonna know what to do, right? You could surround it with a try catch block, and that's how we regularly handle it. But another way to do it is just to throw it. And if you were to do that, it would just fail the entire script. So that's you could leave that as is. It's not a big deal. That makes sense?
But what does that do? Because I saw you use that in the Pokemon project.
Yeah, we haven't gone too much into errors just yet, error handling. But the idea is, like, you know how regularly we used to deal with edge cases or whatever cases with like if-else statements, right? Like if this happened, do this. But you could imagine how if there's a lot of conditions we just don't want period to happen, right? Because that would ruin our code or that would just, ruin the flow of execution. In that case, if the user does do something like that, you just use an exception, but we'll go over that later. For now, just worry about the methods that you need that you haven't programmed yourself. Once they throw an exception, you should just know how to handle it. Either you want to surround it with a try catch block or you could throw it. So for instance, if Ish said like, let me think, I don't know. Ish, can you think of a example for I can't think from your Pokemon project when you happen to use it. You're on mute, by the way, if you're talking. Ish, you on? I think he clocked out.
Wait, what?
No, I was asking Ish when he used the try catch or error statements in his thing. I think
Might have been something else.
Yeah, I think he's.
Hello?
Yeah, hello.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The try catch loop for Pokemon?
Yeah, so Berm saw you use an example of like an air handling case, right? And we didn't really go over air handling. We're gonna go over that later. Like it's not really that important right now. But do you remember what you used it in your Pokemon project for?
I think it had something to do with evolving. I forgot though.
Okay. All right. Let me look into a good example and I'll give them to you. But outside of that is like the homework clear of what I'm expecting?
Yeah.
Yeah? Fa, Berm, you guys are good?
Yeah, I'm clear.
Wait, you cut out for me.
What was that?
Cut out for me. Can you say it again?
Oh, no, I'm just saying everything is clear about the requirements.
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds good. All right, so for this week, just redo this project one more time, and just fulfill this one, island on test case where all these features are going to be encompassed by only one feature. Given statement. So outside of that,
all right.
yeah, good job, guys.
All right, cool.
Later.